Hi, my name is Madeline LeBlanc, and I am currently a senior majoring in business here at Westfield State University. I am pleased to welcome you to the final Westfield State Community Conversation for this semester. Today's topic is entrepreneurial equity. I am personally looking forward to this discussion as I have begun my own business called Hello Food Reviews, with over 11,000 viewers on Instagram and 8,000 on TikTok. Let's meet today's panelists. Our first guest is no stranger to Westfield and Western Massachusetts. Rick Sullivan served as mayor of Westfield for more than a dozen years before moving on to several executive positions at the state level under former Governor Deval Patrick. Currently, Mr. Sullivan serves as CEO and president of the Western Massachusetts Economic Development Council. This council provides resources and information to businesses entering or already operating in our region. Our next panelist is Hope Gibaldi, Executive Director of the Valley Venture Mentors in Springfield. Otherwise known as VVM, Valley Venture Mentors, has been an incubator for several successful entrepreneurial efforts in the Pioneer Valley. VVM holds frequent mentoring sessions and acts as a conduit for resources to budding and current entrepreneurs. Also with us are two individuals who can share their personal experiences pursuing their business dreams. The first is Leonard Underwood, also known as Lenny. Mr. Underwood is the owner and founder of the Underwood Photography. He is with us today because of his successful venture, Upscale Socks. Lenny describes himself as a serial entrepreneur. Our second entrepreneur is Westfield State graduate Devin Streeter, who has begun his own line of authentic, handcrafted footwear after struggling to find shoes that would fit him. Mr. Streeter has now expanded beyond footwear into backpacks, messenger bags, and other items. Completing our panel is Professor Kim Sherman, Westfield State Associate Professor of Economics and Management and advisor to the Westfield State Entrepreneurial Club. Dr. Sherman has participated in numerous regional programs promoting entrepreneurs and advised numerous successful Westfield State students in area competitions. And now I'll turn it over to our Westfield State President, Dr. Linda Thompson.
Hello. Thank you for being here this evening. My first question is for Rick Sullivan. I wanted to just get you to share with us your thoughts on how equitable do you think our economy is here in Western Massachusetts to improve or increase equity?
I think the short answer is nowhere near enough. And that's at every single level, whether you're talking C-suite, CEO, leadership positions, or all the way down to entrepreneurs and small business owners. It is well underrepresented. And I think organizations like myself and many others have made real commitments in strategic plans and certainly our actions moving forward to be more inclusive, in growing that population, really hand over and hand up. But also not just in the language or the plans, but also in the programs that we put together. So, growing the entrepreneurial system in particular, providing real support for small businesses, whether that's, capital growth or expertise in terms of business expertise, business plans, financing, and then really growing. We have an initiative at the EDC called the Anchor Collaborative, which is really bringing our larger companies in Western Massachusetts and opening up their supply chains for opportunities for minority-owned businesses. So I think really it's just recognized by everybody that we are not inclusive enough, and we need to do a lot more intentional work, not just talk. To quote somebody that we've been working with, we're really not looking for a moment, we're looking for a movement, and that really means that there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
So we have two budding entrepreneurs here. So if you were trying to support the next generation or young people on our campus, could you share with us some tools that can be used in order to help nurture the entrepreneurial spirit of young people or people within the Pioneer Valley?
So, I think Western Massachusetts is really entrepreneurial and going back, generations and centuries. It's kind of almost in the DNA. But, groups that are formed to provide that help and support and to help grow the businesses, needs to be intentional. And it means you need to be able to bring, groups together. And we've done that, and we've used VVM, and I know you're going to talk to Hope here in a minute. But, and we just did a series of 6 listening sessions led by my Chief of Staff, Ziamara Delabato, who went out and did 6 of these, 2 in Hampshire, Franklin, and Hampden counties, specifically at minority-owned businesses to talk about the barriers that they see and have experienced, looking at some of the successes, but also looking at those barriers. And again, that goes back to the financing, it's access to markets, and that you have to understand, where the small businesses are coming from and the hurdles that they're going to face, and they're very different. They're not necessarily going to be able to walk into a regular banking institution under the underwriting regulations that are on the books and be able to get financed for their businesses. So they have to, the financial institutions, many of whom are members of the EDC, have to become a little more flexible. They have to be able to provide financing perhaps on a contract basis versus, a 5-year history of the financials of the individuals or of the companies. Because if that's what you look at, very few are actually going to qualify for that standard underwriting criteria. So everybody has to be a little more creative, a little more open to some different solutions. Quite honestly, being a little more entrepreneurial in some of the things they do in terms of financial lending.
Hope I had a long conversation with you an hour before this session, and I was just struck by, the work that you do in your organization, but the types of things that you're doing in order to encourage people to become entrepreneurs. How does the average person learn about it? What are the things that you're doing? And how can we on our campus engage more with you in the kind of work that you're doing? So just share a little bit about what you're doing and some of the opportunities out there for people who want to become an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, thank you. So, Valley Venture Mentors has a number of programs that support entrepreneurs, everything from a monthly networking event, community night on the second Wednesday of the month in downtown Springfield, 5 to 8, little plug, 5 to 8, 276 Bridge Street. And so that's a great opportunity and a place to be able to go to get in the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. It's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to pitch their business ideas, get valuable feedback from the community, get some connections, and really be able to promote their business. I think that is a great place to start, but I think so many entrepreneurs often have these great ideas and just lack the connections or know how to be able to figure out, how do I get this off the ground? How do I get it started? How do I lift it up? How do I get to the next level? And so being able to tap into the network of resources that exist in the community that support entrepreneurs, like Valley Venture Mentors is only one organization of a plethora of organizations around that support entrepreneurs through mentorship and technical assistance. And so I think figuring out what are those types of resources that are available in the community and really tapping into that. But even that can be overwhelming sometimes because there's so many resources. But I often feel like it's the kind of thing where you open the door to one organization, which then opens the door to the next, and you continue to evolve in your understanding of the ecosystem, which helps you to build your business. I don't know.
Yeah, those are good. Kim, as a faculty member here at Westfield State University, what is it that you do to connect with people like Rick Sullivan and Hope here on sharing this is an option for students on our campus?
Well, I haven't done a lot with Rick yet, so we'll be talking. But with Hope and VVM, I think one of the main connectors has been the Grinspoon Foundation. And that has been, I would say, the most important connection we've had on campus, because Harold Grinspoon and his philanthropic activities connects 14 of the colleges and universities in this area into this incredible network of schools doing entrepreneurship. And through that connection, we get to know VVM, we get a connection with UMass, we get to know about what's going on at Smith, and so it really has created an ecosystem and connections that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so we've year over year participated in their pitch contests, and they are very generous in giving awards to our student entrepreneurs. You heard Madeline talk about getting an award from Grinspoon this year that recognizes her entrepreneurial efforts, and so that's been huge. We could do a lot more on campus. I think it's the same concept. We got to keep opening doors, opening doors. I think there's not enough cross-campus understanding of what exists out there. We have kind of a small group that kind of know about VVM, and so we really need to do a better job of communicating. I also think things like transportation are a big barrier to some of our students. So having better ways to get students to Wednesday night VVM would be a great thing so that students could actually be there and experiencing it. Because I think once you're there and you're kind of in the ether of entrepreneurship, it gets exciting and it becomes a reality. And so I think making it more of a reality for more students on this campus would go a long way.
You know, Devin, you told me the name of your shoes, which I just love. I really want you to share a little bit to the audience here about the strategy you used in order to take that leap, and what happened on our campus that encouraged you to even think that this is a possibility. And I just love the name, and I just love those shoes. So, share a little bit with the audience about that.
Thank you. So they're the Owl PFG. Slow plug. So what really encouraged me was just, the need and want to have something of my own. A lot of times, when we go to a store, we're just buying a can of, peaches, or we're just buying, a shirt and not really knowing what it takes, to make those products. And, and through my journey of, entrepreneurship, I really was able to hone in on how that journey is met. And just being able to, one of the best things is, owning my own time, being able to, at a drop of a dime, run to an errand, go to the next errand, or go to this shop to check out new products for for my line. It was more of being able to take the reins and saying, this is how I want to to live my life. This is how I want to provide a brand for people and have meaning behind it. And there's a lot of meaning behind all of my products. Every shoe has a name. And the ones you love so much, the Owl PFG, they're actually, named after, 3 athletes that I ran with here on track. So to me, it's about, being able to, commit to something and staying right on that and until you get to where you need to be.
Taking that leap, did you have to, was there a organization that you went to that gave you a toolkit or gave you the knowledge about how to go about maybe getting funding to support it? And if there's another person out there who wants to do that, who did you go to?
Yes, so the Pioneer Valley has been very instrumental into, guiding me into the right directions and to the right people, So in addition to VVM, it's a great program. That is actually where I got my initial start with my entrepreneurial journey. Then I went to, Elms College. They have a great pilot program that I was able to participate in that, as well as the summer collegiate program. That's a dual program or partnership with VVM and UMass. So those programs are very strategic in helping me with connecting with different other entrepreneurs and just other resources that aren't just always monetary. Although that is the biggest obstacle for that's why we're here. But it's there's a lot for a startup. There's a lot of hats, many different hats that you're going to wear, and in addition to fundraising, those programs were very, very helpful with not only being much more confident in my business, but just even gathering different skill set that is that'll help you through your journey as you become more and more progressive in your business.
Well, I say go Owl.
Yes.
Yes.
So Lenny, you called yourself a serial entrepreneur. I just love that definition of yourself. What gave you the courage to think about becoming an entrepreneur, and what were the challenges and the opportunities that you faced as you were going down this journey?
Yeah, thank you. When I was 19, I started doing photography as a hobby. And my family at the time told me to get a real job, that photography wasn't anything sustainable. I couldn't support myself. I was in school to find a career and, retire and then maybe start a business. And so I think I believed in myself. I bet on myself, if you will, by pursuing opportunities on campus and seeing ads in certain, publications and saying, well, maybe they'll give me a chance, an opportunity. And so I can probably count on one hand how many no's I got. Most times people gave me the opportunity to, photograph their event or headshots or whatever the need was. And so from there, I started doing personal training just because in the gym, oftentimes I would get asked about, fitness questions. So from there, I said, well, I can get certified, and that could be another source of income. And so that was in 2009, and I had a dream one night that I owned a sock line in 2014, which I rarely remember when I wake up. And so I remember that very vividly. Woke up and told a friend about it, and we thought about going into business together. But after a year of figuring out the journey and having difficulty finding some traction in those that could help me with that venture. I never worked in retail before, so it was really a novel idea. It was, something really fresh and interesting, but had no support that could, lead me in the right direction. So I did attend an event that helped me get more direction a year later, and so I pursued a program through Sparkolio, which is now called E4All, Entrepreneurship for All. So that was in 2015. And then another year went by and I was still developing Upscale socks and coming up with names, taglines, designs, the whole gamut, learning the journey since I never had that experience. And so the following year, 2016, December is when I officially launched. So it's been great just being able to share advice and mentorship to those behind me, since I didn't necessarily get that support that I longed for. I mean, I'm thankful for the support I did receive, but it was kind of felt like I was alone at times and not really getting the concrete information that was critical as a young entrepreneur.
So Hope and Rick, you have these two young men coming to you and saying, I have this dream of starting a sock line or starting a shoe line. What advice would you provide to a person like that in giving them the tools or the ideas of how they could go about and realizing their dreams? So I'll let you start and then you can respond.
I think one of the most important things to do initially when you want to start a business is get really clear on what you're trying to do with it, where you're trying to go. Entrepreneurship is so flexible. Do you want to make a little bit of extra money on the side? Do you want it to be your full-time job? Do you want to grow it and scale it, go national? Big dreams are definitely doable, but they need big strategy to go along with it, and big support systems as well. And so, I always encourage people to get really clear on what it is that they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and then from there, taking that big picture vision and pulling it back into a strategic plan, because otherwise, it's just going to stay in the vision world. And so, having to really pull it back and cement it and make it a concrete action plan. And I always recommend, and I'm biased, but tap into your local entrepreneurial ecosystem, all of these organizations that are here to support you, because when you wear so many hats and you're trying to do all of the things, I don't want to get into business. I get into business because I'm passionate about something, not because I love taxes or because I'm really excited about marketing. I mean, maybe some people do, but I need support in all of those different areas because I'm not an expert in any of those things necessarily. And so in order to successfully and sustainably build a business, it really helps to get tapped into the network. I'm also an entrepreneur myself, and I went through the Spark program as well. Lenny was a guest expert in one of the Spark classes that I took. And so getting tapped into that resource for my business really transformed our business, but also transformed my career. It led me down the path that I am now. And so my business Learn in Motion is still in operation. My husband runs most of our programs, but that's what led me to this juncture in my life where I'm now supporting other people with their businesses. And so really getting clear on what it is that you're trying to do, and then finding the support that you need and not being afraid to ask for help. You know, because this is just not even only entrepreneurship, but it's so important to ask for help when you need it, to recognize we don't have all the answers, and to really be a student consistently of your own interests, of your own passions and hobbies outside of the classroom. And
Sure.
Now you know why she's the executive director of VVM. Besides the passion and the smarts, she's great. And I did want to give a shout out to Jay Leonard, who's in the audience and now on the faculty here at Westfield State University, is one of the founders of VVM. And really the concept, you know, was bringing together the smart people with great ideas that are looking to create a business or develop a product, and the mentors or the talent that can be connected to them as mentors. And it's important. And there's certainly very different levels of stages of beginning. There's the person that has the great idea that doesn't really know where to go. There's the one that's been struggling and may have prototypes and may need to connect it into some manufacturing. You may need to put a business plan together, or later on, you may need to be able to get connected into people that are willing to invest in your company to help you grow it. So there's very different stages along the way, and I think that that's where, you know, a VVM working with all of the other, and we've mentioned a lot of the organizations, whether it's Spark or E4All or Forge, you know, can really connect the person at the appropriate level. And really one of the things that I think the EDC is the best at is being able to help be the convener and to help make those connections when you have that very specific talent that's needed to help the entrepreneur grow his business. And I have to tell you that I think one of the attributes in the Pioneer Valley is the leadership in the businesses are very willing to give of their time and their talent. And they really take a point of pride in helping somebody along develop a product or grow a business or just provide technical assistance. And so that's always an easy ask. It's probably one of the easiest asks that we ever make of somebody. They're always willing to give of their time, but it's to connect the person, you know, at the right level. And also one of the big feeders are the colleges and universities. We're extremely fortunate here in the Pioneer Valley to have such a great, high quality, internationally known collection of colleges and universities. And when people talk about talents and ideas, you know, it's certainly the professors and the faculty and the staff, but it's the students that are sitting there. That's the talent. And so, you know, you all help us, you know, attract that talent to the Valley every single year. And that's an important feeder of that source. So it's our job at the EDC to help make those connections, to help incubate those great ideas. We certainly hope that the companies will grow, and we hope that they'll stay here and employ people and invest here and, you know, buy goods and services from the other businesses that are here. So it certainly is a smart business strategy, I believe, but it's an important part of our economy.
Sure. So, Kim, how do you, you know, you heard about all of the strategies that the Economic Development Council is doing, and what, you know, what Hope's organization is doing. How do we, on our campus, engage with them to connect these organizations with the talent on our campus and bringing out those innovators that, you know, that innovation that's in the belly of the people here on our campus?
I mean, I think we've been making strides in getting closer to really creating a more robust ecosystem on campus. I think one, it's just, again, communication. A lot of our students, I don't think, realize that entrepreneurship is even a thing that they can do. And it's really kind of, it's a great moment when you see a student realize, oh, I could work for myself, like I could run my own business. So I think we have to do more of just letting students know it's an option. Jay Leonard is now teaching our entrepreneurship classes. We have recently, thanks to the work in the business department, now the management and marketing department under Rebecca Morris, created an entrepreneurship concentration. So now we have a way to funnel students directly into courses that teach them what is entrepreneurship, how do you become an entrepreneur, how do you think like an entrepreneur. And I think Jay has been doing a lot to open the eyes for our students. We're still kind of siloed, particularly in the management and marketing area, and we know that entrepreneurs come from every single discipline across campus. So I think more, if we can do more to let students know in the arts and music, we've started a program with the music department now, arts management? To kind of think about students who are going to go into the arts who are going to have to be able to manage their own business, manage themselves as a business. So we've started kind of broadening our perspective. So we're on our way, but I think we're kind of going about 10 miles per hour. So maybe we could rev it up a little bit more with your help, hopefully.
Sure. Well, I'd love to help you. As I was listening to you talking about the work that you're doing in management, my background is nursing. I have 3 friends who started their own companies and sold them, and now don't have to work anymore. So I just want you to know that there are more people out there who want your skills. So if you can broaden it to include more than just business majors. But the thing that I just want to talk to you about, Hope, is how do we target? What are the strategies that you're using to target people of color? And we talked a little bit earlier about what you can do even on our campus to bring different types of people to encourage Black and brown people to come and think about this as an option for them. So what are you specifically doing at your organization?
Yeah, VVM, we've been working very hard over the course of the past couple of years to really strategically ally ourselves with organizations, grassroots organizations that are led by people of color, supporting entrepreneurs of color, working a lot with Black and Brown Wall Street, Tiffany Alicia of Black and Brown Wall Street, who hosts a number of pop-up shops. So we've hosted some pop-up shops. We have entrepreneurs here who have participated in our pop-up shops, as well as working with the Made with Revex program. Revex Labs is powered by Berkshire Bank, and that is a retail pop-up shop program for product-based entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs of color, women entrepreneurs, LGBT entrepreneurs, and giving them an opportunity to really promote their products, interact with customers, sell their products out of the Revex Lab space in the Springfield Innovation Center, and then connecting with other pop-up shop opportunities. And so that's just one example of a program that we have. We also work with the City of Springfield's Office of Planning and Economic Development for the Rise Up Springfield program, which is powered by Interrise. Devin is currently in our Rise Up Springfield program. I think, we as entrepreneurs, these are great examples of people who have taken advantage of the resources that are here in our community, and it's really helped them at every level to get to the next level of their business. And so I think part of what we as VVM have been trying to do is really intentionally ally ourselves with the organizations that are led by people of color, that are for people of color, and really integrating those types of programs to better support the entrepreneurs in our area to be more representative of the Springfield community in which we're sitting. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to start with each one of you talking about what do you see as some of the barriers for making that leap, making a decision like that to stepping out on a ledge, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to have your own business or your own company, it's not something that people really think about. But what are some of the barriers or the limits that would keep a person from doing, for becoming like you?
Well, I would say a lot of times, a lot of spaces, that you walk into, they're not inclusive. Mm-hmm. And especially, when you're looking to change your industry, a lot of times, there's people that tend to not want to help because, who's this new person? Who's this, why is this person worth a chance? And I think a lot of times what would help is just, being more open-minded and really, seeing that, the next idea could come from a person that, may not look like you, or the next, pair of shoes might come from a, person that looks like me, and so I think it's really important that, sometimes we open our hearts and we open our minds to, what's different, what's new. Because a lot of times, it may be something that, it's something you may not have experienced before, but it also may be something new, something fresh, and something that, maybe another person can enjoy. But, when there's barriers, when there's, either gatekeepers, it limits the options. And I love options, with Devin Davon, we have options, so I think it's really important to, like I said, open your hearts and open your mind so that, someone that may not look like you, may not come from the place that, that you come from, even if it's food, trying new things, it allows us to be the great country that we are, and I think that's what makes us the great country that we are, is allowing, all different, shapes and sizes and creeds of people to, be able to come together and, make a better, world. So I really believe, opening your minds and hearts is where we need to be and what will allow us to, get across those finish lines.
Sure. Lenny, what did you see as barriers?
I think what would help with that is starting at a younger age. So exposing those that are in elementary school with entrepreneurial opportunities so that they can get that spark, if you will, of, okay, this is someone that is from the community from where I may have grown up or where they grew up in, and they're coming back to the school that they studied at, and they're sharing what they've done throughout their career. I think that's really great, and I'm always honored when I'm asked to go to a school I may have gone to or may not have, and shared some experiences and showing them some examples of things that may not cost that much for them to start as a career, because it can be intimidating to go out on your own and venture out on a new, opportunity. I think another barrier might be intimidation from, banks, unfortunately, where traditionally you might have been turned down by a bank loan for, maybe a home or a car, and so they're not going to give me anything for a business or, a bad credit or whatever the case is. So those are barriers, and seeing, well, I may have to bootstrap my whole way through this journey. So not knowing all of what's available throughout the community or Massachusetts, as we share, there's so much out there. And I think it's also my job or our job to, be ambassadors for these programs and to share with those that may not be aware of what they are, and to, continue to spread the word.
Sure. So Kim is an academic. How do you
I'm glad you came to me. I think our role as educators is to really think about the issues that create environments that are not inclusive, that the biases that people have that would cause them to hesitate about, well, you're not what I normally think about when I'm thinking about buying shoes. And so I think that it's really something that not just for the entrepreneurs, but for all of our students who are going to be going on into workplaces and owning businesses and starting businesses, if they don't go with an understanding of what it means to create an inclusive environment and what it means to understand the biases that we know exist, and think about that and think about how they can change that and how we can all check ourselves, that then things won't change. And so I think as educators and on college campuses, that's one of the most important things we can do, because once students leave here, some will go and continue to get education, but then it's kind of learning by lessons, life lessons, and it's nice if we can spend more time now just really creating that awareness of what it means to create an inclusive environment and what barriers do exist. And we have data to show what barriers do exist, and we have data to show what stereotypes get in the way and who gets money when and all the rest of that. And I think the more that we can just share and understand that, things have a better chance of changing.
Sure.
So just on that point, the change, because that's the biggest hurdle here, is what we're really talking about is we're talking about systems change, and that does not come simply. So just imagine that you work for, an institution or a big company, and you're the person that's in charge of purchasing and procurement. And you have done that job a certain way your entire career, and you are not given extra points or bonuses at the end of the year if you take any risks in that job. You need to have the product when you have the product, or you need the service when you need the service, and it needs to be high quality. So you're going to continue to do what you've always done. You're going to do business with the people that you have relationships with. What we are now asking, and this is a part of the Anchor Collaborative program at the EDC, we are asking people to change their system, to do that differently, to intentionally say, we are going to increase the amount of goods and services that we buy from minority-owned businesses in the region over the course of a year and 5 years, and we're going to grow that. It's going to be very intentional, but that is not going to be easy. So that means that the CEO at the top has to say that this is a priority for my company, my university, my institution, in order to do. You have to make this happen. Then it will happen. But you are going to be changing business relationships that are, in many cases, long-term. So we are actually asking our anchors to identify goods and services and products that they can procure locally, differently, from minority-owned businesses, develop that portfolio of minority-owned businesses that can supply into that, because that isn't necessarily just sitting in the, I'll date myself, yellow pages someplace that you can just call them up. You need to develop that pool. And we are committed as an organization to help develop that pool. That has to be intentional work, but it is systems change, and it is not going to be simple.
So when you talk about an anchor organization, why don't you define what an anchor organization is?
So really any institution or company can be an anchor. We have started with our larger companies. So Bay State Medical is the leader for us, but we've certainly added a number of others, and I won't go down the list because I'll leave somebody out. And we have another cohort that's coming in, including Westfield State University. And really, there's 5 things that the institution commits to. That is hiring locally with an emphasis on minority individuals, and not necessarily, with all due respect, if the old job description said you needed to have a 4-year degree and 5 years of experience, that may not be the case anymore. So this is all part of systems change.
Sure.
And you might not like some of this stuff. Now we're saying this is the skill set that the individuals need to have. So people that might not necessarily have that 4-year degree or the 5 years experience, but they can do the job. But you have to think differently and act differently to fill those positions. But you commit to hire locally, you commit to source locally in procurement, you commit to place-based investing. So if you're going to make an investment in your company or your business, you're going to try to do it locally. The big example there is Big Y, who is an anchor. When they did their new warehouse for their Buy Local program, they did build it in Springfield. They didn't have to put it in Springfield. They now go from Connecticut to Boston. It could have gone anywhere, but they did it locally. You commit to work with individuals in the workplace where that individual is, recognizing that the individual may have barriers for healthcare, childcare, transportation that was mentioned. The list goes on. There's a number of barriers that prevent people from either moving into the workplace or staying in the workplace, some of which, quite frankly, is the declining cliff effect of public benefits going away when people take jobs or take a promotion.
Sure.
They actually financially are worse off than staying on the public assistance program. But working with them so that there's an incentive to work and to stay and work. And then the 5th is just to support public policy positions that support the individuals that are at work. So it's a lot of work. It isn't going to be easy. I'm not here to tell you that it's all going to be different tomorrow, because it won't be. It's going to be a long haul. But going back to a comment from before, we really want to have a movement, and that's going to be a lot of work and a lot of commitment by a lot of big anchors.
Sure, I appreciate that. So I hope your thoughts, and with the name of Hope, I know you have some thoughts about barriers.
This is true, yeah. I think part of it is really about understanding and addressing that there are the barriers, kind of to the points that were made earlier, and then what can we all do as community, as organizations, as institutions, as higher education institutions to address those barriers. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, especially, I think it's about really having culturally responsive programs. It's really about addressing the needs of the community that you're trying to serve and really trying to decipher what that is from their terms and not just assuming that you know like what somebody needs. And so I think partially too, another way that we can really address this is things that, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, like addressing the inequitable distribution of capital is really, really paramount in this discussion. And how can we as lenders, as institutions, as venture capitalists, really make sure that we are embedding equity in all of our discussions and really figuring out how we can break that down. And to Rick's point, that's not something that happens overnight, but it's incredibly important to the work to make sure that historically marginalized entrepreneurs, people who have additional systemic barriers to overcome in order to kind of get their same business off the ground, that we're really addressing those issues, creating systemic policy changes, and really supporting entrepreneurs and meeting them where they're at to be able to level the playing field, I think is incredibly important.
Sure. You know, this access to venture capital that you just were talking about, what is it that we in the Pioneer Valley can do to maybe create a fund or, you know, or some mechanism that there is some capital that people can go to in order to reach their dreams? What are the strategies we need to be doing?
I love this idea. I've been talking about this a lot lately, and so if there are people that are listening that are interested in this, please reach out. I think that this is a really, really exciting idea. In a lot of places and ecosystems like Boston, New York, Silicon Valley, there are a number of venture capital firms. There are so many people in this space, and so they have highly specialized firms that are really investing in Latino businesses or investing in Black-owned businesses. And we have a number of venture capital firms that are really focused on the Western Mass region. But nobody necessarily that's focused on entrepreneurs of color within the Western Mass region. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity there to really pool together resources to be able to start something like that.
Sure.
You got to invite them to Demo Day.
Yes,
Come on, go ahead.
absolutely. The Western Mass Founders Network Demo Day is going to be coming up in June. And so that's a great opportunity to see some of our entrepreneurs. It's a collaboration with the EDC, with Forge, and with the Berkshire Innovation Center. And so that's a great opportunity to see some of our founders. A lot of them are past VVM alum as well, and really be able to invest in their businesses as well.
I just love this venture capital idea. So you're going to put together a fund that
Maybe Hope is good.
It's a collaborative effort.
There are some out there, so if you're really interested, we'll connect you up.
Okay. Well, you know, I think the people who would really be interested are the people who are taking the courses that Kim is teaching, or people like Lenny and Devin. So how do we connect this idea of a venture capital fund to our university? What would you like to see, Kim?
What would I like to see? Well, I mean, it's fundraising, right? It's getting out there and fundraising, and it's tapping into the people who have funds that they can commit to something like this. And I think people commit to things that they believe in and that they are personally connected to. So I think, again, it's getting people more aware of what's out there and the people that they want to support. I think it's also helping people to be aware of the barriers that do exist, so that we can find ways to fund some of the students. I mean, I think one near and dear to my heart is the fact that we have so many first-generation students here as well. And I think, for me personally, the story of a lot of the first-gen students we have of really helping them to understand all the possibilities that are open to them, that they just may not have come into college even thinking that broadly. And I think entrepreneurship is one. There's lots of things. Small businesses, a lot of our students will go back and run their family businesses. I think that that's a whole niche that creates a compelling story for why people might want to help support our students. Because if a fund like that supports our students, I think there's a lot of people who love to support students and help them be successful.
So how do we change this narrative so that this is part of the system, the system here within the Pioneer Valley, within all of the universities, to support people like you, to be able to go to a place and get a small amount of money to help you do your work.
Yeah, I think getting an understanding of what's required when you pursue, a venture capitalist, because, some may not want any equity or may want someone to be involved with their business. So I think having the understanding there is some, trade-off when there is funds available in that respect. So I think overall, if they were to come to a campus like Westfield State University, making sure the students are aware, especially if they're starting a business and they're not familiar with entrepreneurship in the past, or their family's not, doesn't have that background. I think that's important that they don't go too far into it and then have those regrets later
Sure.
on.
Sure.
'Cause that would be unfortunate.
Yeah.
Similarly to that point too, I think when it comes to capital and small business owners, it's about figuring out what is the right type of capital for my business. How much capital do I actually need? I am always amazed at the amount of small business owners who say, I'm going to get a venture capitalist. And I have to break the news to them that unfortunately, they're not really the type of business that a venture capitalist invests in. You might be more of a good fit for a bank loan, a traditional bank loan, or maybe you should consider crowdfunding. And so part of that is like when we get these ideas and we're getting them off the ground and we don't have backgrounds in finance, I don't even know what's out there as far as my funding options. And so getting to know what are the funding options for me or what's available, and then kind of to that same point, what do I need in order to do that? I need a business plan, I need financial statements, I might need a pitch deck, right? And so where can I go to get that type of support? But all of those different types of capital are really, there's a lot of similar elements, but some of them require different things. And so getting to know how much capital do I even need, and what is the right type of capital for me is important.
Is there a
Patience.
Yeah.
toolkit that tells you how to do this? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, there kind of is a toolkit. It's called VVM, but it's different for everybody,
Yeah.
so they got to tailor make that toolkit. But, it depends on where you are in the process.
Sure. Was there a toolkit for you?
I would say, Westfield State was the first toolkit.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, I think being able to access, whichever additional, education that you can, whether it's a certificate program, whether it's, a course at VVM, I think all those options are helpful and very conducive to really helping a person in their journey. I didn't take accounting, but guess what? I'm doing my own accounting. I didn't go to school for marketing and design, but I think my, marketing and my designers look great. So it's really, taking initiative and taking hold of, what you really want to do, and and being real serious about your commitment.
Sure. So one of the things I'd love each one of you to just talk about is how do we as a community support pathways for individuals to become an entrepreneur? What are how do we do that as a community? So I'll start with you.
For Westfield State, I think if access to transportation is a barrier, then bringing those that we know here, so that they have, someone that they can reach out to if there's some questions, and they have that one-on-one conversation. And I think that will be a great introduction to what, someone who may look like them is doing something maybe similar to what they may be wanting to pursue, or maybe not, but they have their point of contact and they could, always further the conversation based on, what their needs may be. I think that might be a really good introduction.
Sure. So Hope.
I love hearing from other entrepreneurs, and so to the extent that you can bring other entrepreneurs here on campus to be talking with the students, there's just such an energy around entrepreneurship. And so I think if you bring a variety of different entrepreneurs from different industries, from different backgrounds, and have them talk about their stories, then people start to see like, oh, that's actually there are elements of that's similar to my story. And encouraging and fostering this idea that, we as individuals can impact the world around us. And I'm a big proponent of social entrepreneurship and about building businesses that are that have a social impact in the community, that are benefiting the community, but also thinking about nonprofits and taking them and thinking about those more like businesses so that they're not necessarily reliant and dependent on the grant cycle as well. And so I think just bringing people around and so that they can, your students can interact with them and ask them questions in a social environment as well as maybe a workshop panel, to really cultivate their interests and passions and skills and encourage them to bring that out and bring that forth, I think would be great.
I'm so happy you talked about social entrepreneurship, because people always think about this entrepreneurship as selling things, but there's a whole host of people who are trying to make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
So thank you for bringing that. So
Yeah, I'm actually going to go back to something that Lenny said earlier, which is, I think, exposure even in the earlier grades to exactly what entrepreneurship is or innovation is, and having people, go in to tell their story in the classroom so that there can be that relationship, so that somebody can sit in the classroom and goes, hey, somebody like me can do this. And start thinking about it, but it has to be a constant. It can't just be a one-off. So if you're going to do it in the elementaries and in the high schools, and quite honestly, the colleges have the opportunity to build it into different curriculum.
Sure.
Or intentionally create groups putting together. Some of the colleges and universities take their engineering and their marketing curriculums and they meld them together, and it's like, okay, now you have to develop a product and you got to market the product and you have to develop the product in the whole 9 yards, and then they kind of do the fun, pitch at the end. Everybody kind of loves the Shark Tank thing, so we all walk around with our fake $1 million and invest. I never invest in the right ones, which is probably why I'll be a terrible investor. But they can make it fun, but it has to be intentional, and I think the more that you can have exposure, to individuals, then it's something that they start to think about, and something that they start to think about, hey, I can do this.
sure. I love this idea of going into the schools, K through 12, and we have a really wonderful relationship right now with the Westfield school system. So if we were thinking about starting earlier on our campus, how do we support that thinking by going into the K-12 system? Have you thought about that at all, Kim?
I've thought about the fact that we have such a robust education department here, and we're training teachers. And so I think even expanding our thinking to not just entrepreneurship, we can think about entrepreneurial thinking, but creativity and innovation. When we know creativity is a skill that is in high demand now in all jobs, right?
Sure.
Everybody has to be more creative. So I think thinking about how do we teach our students, how do we teach teachers to teach their students about creativity and innovation, and what does entrepreneurial thinking mean? The gig economy, so many people have to be entrepreneurial and think entrepreneurially because they're doing their own jobs. They are they're their own brand. So I think that's a really important thing. So I think leveraging into the education department and other departments across campus is a great place to be. I also think we've tried and not been successful by getting an entrepreneur in residence program on campus. I think that would be a great way to bring expertise here, so that students have a resource that's readily available and can give advice and expose them to what it means. Speakers are great. More ways to connect to all the community resources. There's so much out there in this area. We're so lucky. It's just getting people to know what's there and use the right resources at the right time. And that's, we just have to, I think everybody struggles with getting those resources better, more visibility, so that we can really leverage and take advantage.
Sure. So, Devin, how do we support these pathways as a community? And when I talk about a community, I'm talking about the broader community, not just the campus community, but how do we do that?
I think mentorship is a great start to kind of assessing that problem. I mean, a lot of times when we try to work out a problem, we never really find a solution, simply because, times change, people change, and, how systems work, we're looking for them to change. So, but I really feel mentorship, I think that was very helpful for myself, with my journey. I was able to, and if you have the opportunity, not everyone, has access to CEOs and, I mean, not that I know a bunch of them, but, you never know who you bump into going to the store, going to, hanging out. I think being able to, kind of surround yourself around those like-minded people will not only, get you into the right mind of thinking, but as well as you just never know what opportunity may be waiting for, from you just going to the store, with your grandmas, So a lot of times is just putting yourself in the right place and just taking that leap and not being afraid. A lot of times, we're afraid to just, take a leap of faith. And, I took that leap and I'm still kind of flying. So it's really, but the best thing about it is it's very freeing.
Sure.
So I think that is mentorship. If you can, and I think that works both ways, someone at the top and someone at the bottom. I think you can learn a lot from someone who, I guess have their heads together, or and as well as someone who's looking for guidance. You just never know what each can actually do for you.
Sure. So, one of the things that I'm just curious about is what is unique about Western Mass that would encourage a person of color to want to become an entrepreneur here? What stands out? What's unique about this part of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? So,
I would say it's a smaller community, so it's easy to get to know people. You're not overwhelmed with the volume of other sock lines or other, even when I started photography 18 years ago, there weren't as many. There's more now, but I feel like there's the process of bidding for opportunities or just building an alliance or having those connections. As was mentioned, there's 14 colleges, but we're not overwhelmed with colleges, so that you can, have this intimate conversation with, the college president at Westfield State and have those doors open to you.
Sure.
So I would say it's a mid-sized or smaller community.
sure. What are your thoughts, Hope, on what's unique about Western Mass that would be encouraging or supporting of people of color to want to become entrepreneurs in this part of the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think Western Mass has a high quality of living. We're set in this beautiful area. We have a nice range of natural landscapes and kind of a variety of different demographics. And I think that it's just a really interesting and supportive place. I think when you're tapped into the right communities and the right networks, it really is a place where it's a small town vibe in Western Massachusetts. I feel like, it seems as if everybody knows everybody. And so it's the kind of place where I feel like it's got this community culture, but then also, even if you're not in necessarily involved in that yet, it's welcoming. I believe it's a welcoming environment. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why in Western Massachusetts is a great place to build a business.
Your perspective.
They're all just doing the ad for me here, so that, I think that that's all correct, right? And I think, going back to something I said earlier, is I think the CEOs and the business leaders are always willing to help make those connections, because I do believe that at the end of the day, business is all about personal relationships. And so, we have to do a better job of making sure that everybody does in fact know everybody. But I think that there's a real willingness, particularly right now, I do think that there's a moment in time here that because of where everybody sits, that there is going to be a real effort. And I also think that there's real opportunities at this moment in time, because it is also a time going to be of transition. And there was something mentioned about succession planning earlier. A number of our institutions and companies and businesses, they are changing as the workforce and the individuals that are holding the seats of power, if you will, are going to be changing out. It's just a fact of life. So there is also an opportunity here to intentionally make those changes to have all those seats be much more inclusive. And I think that there is a real willingness, and I know Eric Weiss from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission's here, and his boss Kim, and Linda Dunleavy from the Franklin County, and a whole lot of other organizations, Community Foundation and Katie Zobel, are all coming to the table all the time and having these exact discussions, because I do think that right now it is a moment in time, and I think that you will see much more inclusiveness coming forward, because there's just a real opportunity.
Sure. Your pitch, your thought.
I would say, I don't know. I think part of the equation of whether this becomes a great place for entrepreneurs, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of organizations, but is this a place that people of color want to come and live? Is it a place that they feel like they have community? And so I don't know the answer to that. I would probably want to know better from the people that are here, living here. Do you feel like you can live in Amherst? Can you live in Northampton? Do you feel like all communities here are places that are inclusive and open and welcoming to you? Or do we still have some barriers to creating a really open community in Western Mass? And I think that's a question that should be explored and understood, because you can have entrepreneurs, but if they don't want to stay because they don't feel like this is home for them, then everybody wants to feel like they belong and they're included. So
Devin, what is our unique pitch here in Western Mass that would make you want to stay here?
Well, I stayed myself, and I think that was strategic as well. I mean, when I started this journey, the first thing, people said, "Oh, you got to, move to New York. You got to move to New York. That's, the fashion capital." And and that may be true for some, some people's journey. And but I think the most important thing, was keeping something homegrown. In the place, I've been educated here, in the Pioneer Valley, and I thought it was important to, build my business here in the Pioneer Valley. And I think, it's very much of a mixing pot. You can, and I live in Springfield, you can, one block of the street, go to a restaurant that's, a Spanish restaurant. Then you could go to a Jamaican restaurant, and down the street you go to an Italian restaurant. I think the diversity is there, and I think, along with the recent pandemic, that it's really shown the spirit of people just want to show and share their different cultures, and I applaud it. And so I definitely feel that this is a welcoming place to many different backgrounds, many different cultures. I just think we, as a community as a whole, need to do better to recognize and to bring attention to these smaller businesses, and whether that's through funding, or whether that's through just trying a new place on a Friday night. I think because there's so much diversity in Springfield. There's so much diversity in the Pioneer Valley. You just got to go out and look for it, and just kind of take a chance. And that's just kind of what myself and all the other minority businesses are just saying. Just take a chance. I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they my shoes are awesome. The food is the different varieties of food that Springfield offers. It's so many, and it's great. So just take a try, take a chance. That's what I would say.
So we have several questions that the audience have want to know, want answers. The first question from the audience is for the two entrepreneurs. What was your biggest personal barrier? So, Lenny.
I would say when I first started my entrepreneurial journey in 2004 as a 20-year-old, was getting family support, but that didn't last forever. I think once they started seeing my business growing and that I was really focused on it and driven to see that it flourished, they said, well, we can support you from supporting you at a prom, and I'm, collecting money, or, you have your photo booth and I'm running that, or helping you purchasing supplies at times of need. So I think that initially was a barrier, because my family, my grandmother was a a hairstylist. So she did have a beauty salon for a while in her home. But even with her, she said, get a real job. I want you to have a sustainable career. And I was I was at the time going for my master's in public administration. So I thought that was my journey. But I think that was a barrier. And it at times wasn't the best, not getting your family support. And even others around me. I think entrepreneurship has changed so much over the last 18, 15 years. But back then, it was tough, believing in something like that. And, I feel like also God leading me in that direction.
Sure.
But that was a barrier, but I think anything you can overcome it if you are, driven and determined to get past them.
Sure. Devin.
Yeah, I would say hearing the word no or not yet. It took me a very long time to just get comfortable enough to say, all right, I understand why thank you for your input, but you're going to hear it a lot, and it's not a bad thing. It just may mean that you got to, go back to the drawing board. It might just mean, the timing, may not be right, but it was very something, that was hard for me to take sometimes. I remember the first time, I went to this networking event, and the guy, one of the the guys there asked me, "Can you do it better than Amazon?" And I'm like, well, I think we all would like to do it better than Amazon, but in that discussion, it was a little, discouraging because, so that's who my, competition, Amazon. It was a little, intimidating, but what it, for me, what it did was, just kind of gave me a little more fire under my feet to just say, okay, yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, there's probably going to be a bunch of doors slammed, in your face, but you just need that one door. And once that door opens, so many more will open. So I just, the biggest barrier, give yourself time, take those no's, because, you don't want to get too far and you never heard a no, and then you get a no, and it's just so devastating to you. So it's okay to hear them, just know that, be confident in what you're looking to, do as, as a business owner, or, whether it's an artist, a musician, be confident in what it is that, what you have and what you are willing to offer.
Sure.
Could I also?
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
no,
go ahead.
I was gonna say that, the thing about entrepreneurship that can be really challenging is that is the mindset part of it is so critically important, and how we oftentimes, entrepreneurship culture can be really toxic. It's like go and strive until you have a personal jet and a Bentley in the garage. It's like, and work 90 hours a week, and so it's this very you have to keep giving and giving and giving. And so I think it's really important too to create boundaries around your personal time, create boundaries about your self-care and family time and things of that nature, because sometimes you can get so wrapped up in it. It's not like I work a 9-to-5 job. I know when I put my work down and I put it away. Entrepreneurship, there's not as many boundaries. So it's up to us as individuals, I think, to set those boundaries, and that can be really challenging.
Yes.
I just wondered if, from all the no's, if the shoe style or the look changed, or is the product still pretty much the same as you started with?
Well, someone told me I was just crazy. So, when it comes to fashion, footwear happens to be one of the, the hardest industry or, subsectors of, fashion. And the same event that it was years ago that this happened. But someone asked me, well, why would you want to go into, footwear? I'm like, well, why not? It's something that I've always thought about when it comes to, we don't think about, we all need shoes, So it was very much of like, your idea is just kind of too wild. It's too ambitious. That's what I would get that word a lot. It was too ambitious. And I mean, I understand, where they were coming from, but, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, no matter how big it is, it may be a journey, but, you go after it. And, that was the place and the mindset where I was when I, wanted to start my business. So it was just a lot of no's of, this isn't the right idea for you, and it, that was a little daunting because, this is what I wanted to do. So, you know, how do you say no to what you want, you know?
Sure. Well, a lot of women have lots of shoes, so I'll say that. So the next question, where do you produce your products? Do you see challenges in manufacturing? So a lot of questions for the two of you.
Good questions.
Yeah, so when I had the dream about starting a sock line, I knew I needed to find a good manufacturer that I could rely on. I didn't want to be a slave to the business, you know, trying to produce them somehow myself or whatever, but I researched probably 30 manufacturers across the globe, and so I settled with two initially in China, and so I'm now with one outside Shanghai, and it's been a really good journey with them. I think it said what was the second?
Could you put the question up there?
Barriers
The
to
bear.
manufacturing, challenges.
A challenge.
Do you see challenges?
Challenge. So recently with supply chain issues, that's been a challenge. I think we're better than we were. My socks are through freight, so you know I don't have to worry about too much with boat travel. But I would say that has been probably the most recent challenge. But overall, it's been pretty smooth.
Sure.
So currently, we use a manufacturer out of Italy, and you know, as we grow, and that was hard to find. So you know, the internet is a great tool. I think we don't give it enough credit sometimes. It is a great tool. So, but yeah, so we have a manufacturer out of Italy. We are with them now. As we scale and as we expand, we may visit that conversation as far as switching manufacturers. But right now I'm happily with them. We do offer free shipping. So they're great for the moment. As far as manufacturing, depending on the product, there could be many different. I couldn't put my finger on one. You can have a problem just as much as with packaging. That there's so many different elements that come into manufacturing that you just couldn't pinpoint it, and it definitely kind of matters and more on your industry. I would say right now we're at a really good place where all of our products is great quality. Even our T-shirts and which are made locally, I would say that. T-shirt station out of West Springfield as a plug. So the great quality, and right now I would probably stay with them, as of now.
Sure.
But like I said, as things progress, and as I'm scaling and as we're growing, that conversation will be most likely revisit. But local is the best at the moment.
Sure.
So just on that point, and I don't know that other than maybe the T-shirts, I don't think it probably is applicable to the socks and shoes necessarily, but we actually at the EDC have a program. We stood up a program called Forge, which is in partnership with Greentown Labs, which is out of Somerville, which is really focused on entrepreneurial startup companies, but specifically in the clean energy sector. So as those companies would start to scale and need to do prototypes and do manufacturing, those companies were going overseas, or a lot of them were going to Wisconsin. So Forge that we stood up is really to make those connections between those companies in Somerville in our really strong sector here in engineering and manufacturing in Western Massachusetts, to make those connections. Because while I may not be able to be cost competitive with China or Vietnam or some of the other locations, I can be Wisconsin. So Western Massachusetts can be very competitive, and we have seen a lot of onshoring because of the supply chain issues and just reliability, and quite honestly the quality of the work. Now that's specifically to manufacturing, and actually Hope and I were at a meeting this morning where there's been over $11 million worth of contracts that have come back here into the local economy because of that program.
Sure.
So I do think that being able to do it locally is really an important part, again, of our economy, but it's another opportunity to build the relationships between our existing manufacturing and engineering companies and the startup entrepreneurs.
So there you have the plug for our economy. Another question from the audience: what role can internships play do they look different than traditional internships? Nice question.
Oh, I love internships, and I love the idea of integrating internships with the educational community and the higher education institutions and the small businesses in the community as well. Not just the small businesses, but also organizations, nonprofits, small businesses and nonprofits in particular. Thinking through, they really need extra support. They really need staff power, additional person power, and we can be giving our students, either high school students, college-age students, real hands-on experience to be able to build their repertoire, their resume, and then it's a really mutually beneficial relationship. So I love the idea of expanding on the internships. I think that each college and university around has its own unique process for engaging in the local small business community. And so I've done a lot of research on each of the different institutions and how does a small business, say for example, my business Learn in Motion, we work with youth and we, how would we get people who want to study education to be able to be in our classroom in South Holyoke working with our students. It's a really great opportunity. But if me as a small business owner, if I don't know how to engage with each of the universities, I think we need to be able to facilitate and foster those relationships.
Sure. Role of internships in your business?
Have I had any or not?
thought about it.
I have, yeah, absolutely. Certainly when it comes to those that are current students, they're abreast with social media. So TikTok, you know, when I was looking to start a TikTok account, I did speak to some high school students and they told me some things I should keep in mind. But something I need to focus more on, I think, moving forward on lightening the load for me at least when it comes to management or marketing or the economy, things to, you know, thinking forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. Role of internships.
Well,
No, go ahead. You're way better than
I think the other thing we can think about is community service learning, where we can actually use classrooms and faculty to connect with small businesses. We have great marketing professors on campus here who love to have their students have real life opportunities to learn with small businesses, actually practice, and they have the advantage of having the faculty to guide them. So it really is a win-win. You have students who are doing real work. It's meaningful to them, and of course they love hearing from, I mean, the students would so much rather listen to Devin and Lenny than the faculty, right? So it gives them a whole nother opportunity. It's something they can put on their resume. And so I think there's a lot of different configurations that we can use. Micro internships where it's for one project. Maybe it's not a whole semester, but it's a particular project that students can work on. I think there's a lot of different ways that can work and be really win-win-win for everybody.
Sure.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I think internships would be great and very instrumental, especially for a startup. I could just imagine how much work I could get done, you know, with an extra pair of hands or extra pair of eyes. You know, especially, you know, like you were saying with TikTok and social media. Social media is very, it's what's, you know, it's the newest thing now. It's what's selling a lot of products. It's, you know, everyone, you know, has it. And just areas of, you know, like that would be just so helpful, you know, with internships. So I would love one.
I think too, with student-based internships, it's great for them to get credit, right? To be able to work towards their degree, but also to the extent that there are creative solutions. The Association of Black Business and Professionals has an internship stipend program to be able to connect entrepreneurs and be able to pay them for these internships.
Sure.
So to the extent that we can also pay the students, you know, and it doesn't have to come from the pocket of the business or the nonprofit, I think is incredibly important and valuable to be able to get creative and entrepreneurial with the way that we think about these things, because college credit is great, but, you know, also getting paid.
Well, and some students can't afford to not have a job.
Exactly.
And our students, most of our students work, and some of them work a lot in addition to going to school. So for some, it's not an option. If you don't get paid, they can't do it. So I think that's such a great point.
Sure, we're looking to develop more of these internships or apprenticeships where you're connecting what they're learning to the maybe application during work, like a marketing student helping a company with marketing. So so I'm sure your organization is using a lot of interns.
We'd love to use more interns, and all of my member companies would be more than happy to take interns, and all of those would be paid. There's also a number of different programs out there. Most of them are sponsored by the state that will actually, particularly during the summer times, you know, specific areas, whether it's, you know, clean energy or IT, will actually provide the company with all of the money to be able to bring that person on board as part
Sure.
of an internship.
So, another question from the audience? What can Westfield State University do to offer certificates, supply chain manufacturing, or Six Sigma programs? Somebody must have known I wanted that question.
Then go ahead. There's always a chance to lobby the president when she's in the room.
So, I think I wanted to punt that to you, Kim, because
Me?
yeah, because as you know, one of the things that we, you know, in this region, a lot of the manufacturers in this region have talked to me about the importance of having certificates and, you know, having parts of a degree, and then even working with their employees to help them learn about things like supply chain, logistics, Six Sigma, all of the lean manufacturing, even safety. So how do we, as a university, transition to offer things like that, which I know are so important to this region?
Well, I'm not a dean, so I don't know if have all the answers, but I know that there have been more conversations recently about how do we go into the community and find out what the needs are of some of the employers in the area, and can we then create these programs that actually help upskill or reskill employees. And I think to me the first step is we have to understand what opportunities exist. I mean, to upskill people or reskill people for jobs that then go away. And it is tricky. I mean, things are changing so quickly now that really thinking far enough ahead to know what jobs are going to be in demand, what jobs do we have here, because I assume one of the goals would be to really reskill for this area, Western Mass, or at least Massachusetts. So it's really understanding what are the needs and what are the jobs going to be, and then designing our programs. And of course we need resources. You know, we have to have the people who have the skills and can offer the curriculum. But I think particularly as we know, the non-traditional students are going to be more and more important to every school and every university. I mean, we just can't ignore that the demographics are changing. So we have to think about that, and I think along with that there are other things that we have to consider, like non-traditional students often have families and they have other responsibilities and they need childcare, and so how do we, in a perfect world, how do we create kind of wraparound support for non-traditional students so they have the time and the ability to come and take some of these classes and certificate programs that benefit them and benefit their employers?
So I'm not the one that put the question up there, but I did actually make this comment earlier in the conversation, where it's going to become, the workforce is going to become much more skill-based as opposed to necessarily degreed and experienced. And you know, some of that is being driven by the fact that there is just a significant labor shortage, not just here in Western Massachusetts, but across the state and quite honestly across the country. And so employers are looking for individuals that have a certain skill set, and you know that they have a certificate that has to be recognized. You can't create your own certificate that doesn't necessarily mean anything, you know, out there in the manufacturing world or whatever world you're talking about. It has to be a standardized credential. But it's a couple of things. And I'll give you one example. There's a local manufacturer that needs to have their quality control individuals. They need to hire 6. Well, they have some internal individuals that this would actually be a promotion for, but they don't have the certificate. So they are actually willing to pay for that certificate, for the employees to go get that certificate over a period of time. It's a very specific, you know, individual thing for that particular company, but every single employer has those things. So it also means that the colleges and universities have to become much more flexible in terms of what they're willing to offer, and it may not necessarily be part of the standardized curriculum.
Sure.
There may be one-offs when you have, because you have a business model, you need to put the students in the seats to be able to have the tuitions come in. You're going to have that very close working relationship with the business community to provide that, but we are here to help.
Sure, I really appreciate that. I know I had breakfast yesterday with a business leader who was saying, come to Springfield, and that's what I was talking to you earlier about. And there is a Y that offers childcare, so that was one of the things that they were sharing. Almost at the end, I just want to give each one of you a chance to share your final thoughts with the audience. So I'll start with you, Devin.
Okay. Well, I'm just extremely excited to be back here at Westfield. I'm an alumnus of here, so it's really exciting to be able to, come back to campus and at this capacity. I also would just like to say, if you have a dream, if you have something that you want to accomplish, just do it. It's scary, but everything is scary sometimes, but just take that leap and believe in yourself and take a chance on yourself. That's what I would say.
Sure, we're proud of you.
Thank you.
Kim.
I would say I love hearing from the entrepreneurs, and again, I know students love to hear the real life experiences. So the more we can do this, the better. The other thing I haven't said yet is I do think we should also think about doing much more of this, the curriculum, the speaker series early on in internships in students' college careers, because we have, I think, too many students. Our entrepreneurship class is probably almost all seniors, right, Jay? And we're in the second semester, right? So they're 1 foot out the door,
Sure.
and we're talking about entrepreneurship. So I think thinking about how we can continue to move things earlier to expose students to it and to give them a better understanding of what the opportunities are, it's just so much better that they're not already like halfway out the door when we say, oh, great opportunity here for you.
Sure.
I agree. I think the best part has been Devin and Lenny, and we need more of them. And so, my organization is committed to help there be more.
Okay.
And that means helping remove or eliminate or reduce the barriers to entry, and to make those connections so that, we become much more reflective of the community that we are.
Sure.
That commitment is serious on the part of the business community of Western Massachusetts.
Sure. Oh,
I believe that entrepreneurship is for everybody, whether it's a lot or a little, whether you want it to be, your side hustle, something you do on the side, you want it to make it your full-time job, or you want to go national. I really believe that even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, that entrepreneurial thinking can really support you in your career. And the skill set that is honed by the trying and failing that is inherent in entrepreneurship is so critical. Like entrepreneurship is often just like you butting you're running into a wall over and over and over again until you decide, okay, maybe I'll go in a different direction. And so all of these skill sets that are built, resiliency, creative and innovative thinking, problem solving, the world needs it. The world needs these great ideas. The world needs people, a new paradigm shift in business. This is business for the community and business for the greater good. And so there's so much potential in this space, and I encourage you to pursue those dreams.
okay. Lenny.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you again for having me. So I would say for an entrepreneur, the key is to be consistent. So whatever you're pursuing, if you're posting on social media, be consistent. If you start something, make sure you're staying on top of it. And that's what helped me when I was going through Spark Holyoke. We had weekly homework assignments and we had tasks that we had to fulfill. And so that helped me to stay on track with implementing a lot of the things that we were learning and then pursuing it in the next coming months. So that is something that I love to drive home about and to share. So I'm happy to share with anyone that's out there that may be in need of a mentor or someone to talk to for more advice.
Sure. So I want to thank each of our panelists and those who are in our audience, both here in the studio and over Zoom. This wraps up our fourth and final community conversation for this semester. We hope you have enjoyed these discussions as much as we have in bringing them to you. Watch out for our website and your email, as we hope to be back in the fall with more interesting topics. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.